Wait is finally over and I'm finally reviewing The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. So this is the first in Stormlight Archive. Also in this video I'll be opening this package, and you can skip to this part if you are here for just unboxing, but would totally appreciate if you can watch the review first. So let's start with this video and see what I have and my thoughts on The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Hey guys, and welcome back to my new video. I hope everyone's doing absolutely fine. For those new to my channel, I'm Divya and you will find book reviews, unboxings, vlogs, and a lot many other fun stuff related to books and fandom. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you can hit the subscribe button. And now let's start with this video. So before I jump into the review of The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, I'll be giving you what's the meaning of the Stormlight Archive. So there are storms, there are some light, and that actually means Stormlight, and there's no major reasons for the same, but there are storms in these books that comes every now and then, and that's the reason this series is called the Stormlight Archive. And if I have to tell a little about the same, so there is currency, the spheres, gems, and all those things you find in other fantasy books, so that's currency. But the thing different here is these currencies filled with stormlight whenever those storms come. So the normal spheres are like this, and when the storm comes they are filled by stormlight. So I know it's a little confusing maybe for the first timers who haven't read the Stormlight Archive, but that's the magic of Brandon Sanderson, that his magic system is unique, and we'll be talking a little about that in later part of this video. But let's start with this video and see what is this book about, and we'll be starting with a little gist of the plot, and let's start. So I've quite often said in my videos that I'm a big fan of Brandon Sanderson, and I just love his books. Like after reading his Mistborn trilogy, I became his fan, and I've so many times said this, like he's my favorite author, and I just purchase his books with my eyes closed. So all those books up there are Brandon Sanderson, and this is not the only copy, the mass market paperback that I own. If you can find The Way of Kings up there, those are the Golan's editions, and these are two. They divided them in two parts because of the length. These books are 1000+ pages. So talking a little about The Way of Kings, well, I believe it is easier to go ahead with each character at a single time, because this is a 1000+ page of a book, and I believe it will take a lot to explain the plot. So I'll take help of those characters and will try to explain the plot of this book. And this is a spoiler-free review, so I won't be giving much of the details. So starting with Kaladin. So Kaladin is the son of surgeon, but ended up being in army. So he doesn't know how he ended up being a person in army, but at the start of this book he was a slave and is taken to Sarted Plains, and the Sarted Plains is a location where majority of this book is based on, and that is the place where all the other characters are, and he's being taken as a slave over there, and we don't know his backstory and we don't know what happened to Kaladin. So that is one of those first characters who is taken to Sarted Plains and is taken as a slave. So the next character is Salan Dawar, who just ended up on Kharbranth port at the very start of this book. She is there because her house is in turmoil, and she thinks the only chance for the survival is after joining King's sisters as a ward. So she is there to become a ward to Jasna, who is King's sister and another character from this book. So she is there in this new town, and she is looking forward to join her, and she is looking forward to persuade her to become her ward, and that's her story. And there's something more to it, and you will eventually find after reading this book. So let's jump to the next character. Dalinar Kholin is another character from this book, and he's fighting at Sarted Plains with some enemies. And he's fighting because at the very start of this book, in prologue itself, the king was killed, and that was Dalinar's brother. So he's there to take revenge, and he's there with his sons and other king, his brother's son, who is taken as the new king of Alethi, the kingdom they are from. So he's there to fight enemies because those enemies killed his brother, but there's something more to the story because they have been fighting over there for past 6 years. Well, there's Dalinar Kholin, and I'm just talking about him from his princedom because there are so many other characters. As I've said, this is a 1000+ page of a book. At the very start also I've said, like Storm and Stormlight. So Stormlight and all those storms and things go hand in hand. So this is majorly story of this book, and this is not the only book with these characters and all. There are different kind of creatures and different type of a magic system altogether. So we'll be talking a little about those when I'll be talking about things that I like from this book. But this is a little plot of the same diet. People are fighting over Sarted Plains, and they're trying to take revenge of King's death. and one person who is Kaladin, who is taken to Shattered Plains because he ended up being a slave. We don't know what happened to him. And then the third character is Salandawar, who is not at Shattered Plains but she's at a different location altogether, but wants to become King's sister's ward. So these were all the characters, and let's talk a little about what I liked about this book and all the other things like plot, characters, magic system, and all the other things. So let's start with those. Well, I know you didn't get much of a plot that I shared with you all, but that's what the author wants, because in each Sanderson books there is element of surprise, element of suspense, and that's what make his books like amazing, because you don't know really what's gonna happen. These are big books, and you know, like whenever there's a big high fantasy books, so it takes time. You need to really read it slowly and steadily to come to that part which the author wants us to know, and that's one of the great areas of Sanderson. So that was one of those things. So let me say a little detail about the characters from this book, and we'll be coming to plot and magic system later. So let's talk about characters. Well, one of the best things in Sanderson books are characters, and these are all layered. Like, you don't really know what's their backstory is, and that makes it like amazing, because you don't really know what happened to those characters and how they ended up being here. And that's not for just single character, but all of them. Sometimes it takes whole books, sometimes many books. That is one thing. And the other thing that there in these books is it's a big book, so characters are so many. Like in Wheel of Time, I've also read that one, so there are also so many characters, and that's the thing that comes with high fantasy, that you get so many characters to read, be it George R.R. Martin or Robert Jordan. So in this book as well, some characters have major impact, some have minor, but all are like written with absolute brilliance. Talking about plot a bit, so the plot is high fantasy, and that is mixed with science fiction, and Sanderson like usually takes into account science fiction a lot, maybe be it in his series of Mistborn and other series like Steelheart, that is Reckoner's trilogy. So he takes into account science fiction, and that's the similar case in Skyward as well. So that is one of those things that you will find in Sanderson books a lot. So that is that he takes help of fantasy with science fiction, and that's the case in these books as well. Talking about the speed while reading these Stormlight Archive novels, so one of those things is I never found them slow, because I read it, as I've said earlier, that I read this book 2 years back, and that was my first time. And before it I read The Eye of the World, that was the Wheel of Time books. So Wheel of Time books were like really slow for me. So after reading Wheel of Time, I didn't like find these books like too slow, and these are fine for me. Like, I'm used to high fantasy, so the pace of these books is amazing. Like, you get so many moments after a few chapters or maybe a couple of chapters, and that's not the entire case in Eye of the World. I'm not comparing, but I'm just saying that the Eye of the World is too slow for me, like Wheel of Time series. So I never found this series too slow. I'm talking about like speed reading terms, like I finished Words of Radiance in just 6 days. So I'm talking about like reading speed of mine. So the plot you may find like a little slow, maybe those people who are into like YA fantasy kind of novels. So I'm not discouraging a bit, but I'm just saying that those who are into YA fantasy might find this book a little text heavy, because 1000+ page book, and that will be a text heavy book, because you will find so many chapters and a lot many details. Like, even if a landscape is explained in these chapters, you will find 2 to 3 pages dedicated to it, and that will be the case with any other high fantasy novel. There are 5, I think these books are divided in 5 parts if I'm not wrong, and that is like accompanied by interludes in between. So interludes was something that like used to take 50 or something pages, 30 or 50 maybe. So interludes were between one part to another. So maybe after 200 pages you will find interludes. So those used to take a little time. I usually used to get a little bored in that time, because interludes was something that you will eventually find when you will read, but those were a part that I usually used to find like a little boring. But other than that, I absolutely used to love like paths and all. Well, let's come to the magic system, and that's one of those specialities of this author, that he comes up with a different kind of magic system altogether. A different kind of magic system was there in Mistborn trilogy, and a different kind of magic system is there in this Stormlight Archive. So people might find this magic system a little confusing at start, and that can be a reason that people can leave these books midway, or maybe after starting or reading 50 odd pages. But I wouldn't recommend you to like leave these books, because though it's a big one, but they are the best, at least for me. Maybe I'm biased because he's my favorite author, but I just love these books, and I will say that just complete the first book. Maybe you will not get the magic system at first, but you will get or end up loving it or understanding what is going to happen and what is happening. So magic system is one of those things, as I've said, is a speciality of Sanderson, and you will get to see so many creatures, so many things. Like in the very start of this video, I said how Stormlight and currency and how currency absorbs Stormlight. So that is one of those things, and it has its pros and cons. Like Stormlight has the pros and cons that will be shared in these books, and you will find so many uses of the same. So that is like out of the box thinking by the author, and totally loved it. And magic system is one of those things I believe is one of the best and one of the major like strong areas of the Stormlight Archive. Well, battles are again one of those specialities of Sanderson, and will again and again say speciality words because he choreographs things very well, and battles are very well choreographed in these books as well, because there's Stormlight, and as I've said, Stormlight has its pros and cons, so you will find the pros and cons in those battles as well. So these are beautifully choreographed, and you will end up loving, you will get goosebumps in between, and that is like I'm in love with those. Like I just want to read it again. Well, talking about universe a bit, so Sanderson created his own universe named Cosmere, which contains the Stormlight Archive, Mistborn, Elantris, Warbreaker, and all the other novels by this author. So it is kind of similar to like Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse. So a lot many authors, high fantasy authors, fantasy authors, like usually create their own universe, and all the other novels are placed in that only, and that's the similar case in Sanderson as well. But the unique element in it is that the magic system is totally different in all the other books. Like Mistborn is having some different kind of magic system, Warbreaker is having some different kind of magic system, Elantris is having some different kind of magic system, and we don't really know the timeline, and that makes like his books so great, because we don't know timeline when Warbreaker happened, when Elantris happened, and what universe is that, and where that is placed. But you want to know more about these novels, these universe, so you can pick Arcanum and Bounded. You will find a lot many details, but you need to like stay alert for any spoilers in that, because you can't really browse to the same because of spoilers. But you will find information related to these type of universes in these books, and we can't really, as I've said, we don't know how the timeline is based up for these books. So if you want to read Cosmere books, the best is to go by publication order, but that is a different kind of video altogether. I'll come up with that video if you want me to, like how to read these books in Cosmere series. But anyhow, that what takes this author's imagination to the next level. And if I have to give an example from the Stormlight Archive itself, so like you may have seen in novels, you will find upper caste and lower caste, and the distinction between the same is kind of similar in all those novels. But in these books, it is not related to money or something kind of that, but it is related to their eyes. Like those people who are having light eyes are considered as upper caste, and those with the dark eyes are considered as lower caste. So that is one of those things that this author came up with, and you will find so many things related to it, be it safe hand or be it other things, like so many things. So you'll find a whole unique magic system, and the distinction is totally different from any other high fantasy or fantasy book. So yeah, those were my thoughts related to all the major topics that I wanted to discuss in this video. So a little something other than these things that I said are all these books are illustrated editions, and I've already made a video related to it, like mass market paperback versus hardcover, which one you should get in Stormlight Archive. So I'll link the video up there or down there in the description box below, so you can check. But these books are having illustrations, like so many illustrations. So whenever an unusual being is introduced in these books, so you'll find illustrated editions like this is related to war or something. So every now and then you will find one illustration, and those are not just a part of hardcover, you will find them in mass market as well. So if you want, you can get mass market as well, but as you can see, the spine is already gone. So that is one of those things, that the books are illustrated, and that's the plus point, because some creatures are like kind of unique. We don't really know how they look after reading their description, but those illustrations really helps, and I totally like these things about these Stormlight novels. So illustrations is a big plus point for those who like to see illustrations in these books, or those who get a little bored after reading some pages without any illustration. So yeah, that was one of the other things. So yeah, we actually came to the end of this video, and I don't really have anything like bad to say about these novels, about Stormlight Archive. I've rated them 5-star, all of them, the first 3. So I'll come up with the review of Words of Radiance and Oathbringer very soon. So that was the first book that I said my thoughts about. I don't have anything bad, as I've said, to say about these books, but you may find it slow, as I've said earlier, if you're not into high fantasy. So that can be one of the reasons. So I would recommend not to DNF these books and read. They are slow for someone who is not used to his work, but you will eventually get the gist of it, and you will eventually start liking it after you cross like 200-300 pages, and the plot usually makes sense after that. I totally forgot to unbox this box, so let's quickly unbox it and see what we have in it. So yeah, that was a customized Funko, and a friend of mine actually made that one for me. So that was Kaladin Stormblessed. You may have seen it in the unboxing. So look how amazing it looks. So for those who have seen the cover of Words of Radiance, the tour cover of Words of Radiance, you can see Kaladin Stormblessed in it with this blue uniform and a spear. So I totally love this. Like, you can see how amazing it looks. So I totally love this, and it will stay here on my shelf. So a big shout out to Scent of Tom, who sent off a Tom, I guess. So you will find the link or maybe the Instagram handle over here. So a big shout out to her for making this Funko. A big shout out to Apurva. So thanks for making this Funko, and I totally love it. And it's at his right place with all the other books by Brandon Sanderson. So yeah, this was the unboxing that I wanted to do in this video, and I may have already shared the stories related to the same on Instagram, so you may have already seen them because this video will drop a little late, I believe 2 to 3 days later. So yeah, those were my thoughts related to this book, and that was the unboxing, and I totally love this book and can't really recommend this book anymore to you all, and pick this book ASAP, and would also suggest to read any other high fantasy or fantasy books before it, because you might not like any other author and any other book after reading this series. That happened to me, that I don't like any other fantasy book after reading the Stormlight Archive, and I usually go in a major slump after reading Stormlight because I don't like any other book after reading it. Yeah, I think that will be the case with any other like Stormlight Archive fans. So yeah, that was all for this video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, you can hit the like button, and you can comment down below and let me know your thoughts related to the same, and do let me know if you're ever picking Stormlight Archive, or in the future, or maybe soon. So if you're picking it up, that's a big thumbs up for me. You can follow me over my social media accounts, handles are here. We'll be catching up very soon. We'll be coming up with other book reviews very soon. So that was all for this video, and stay healthy, stay home, stay safe. Bye bye.